Hey everybody, it's Audrey from Audrey Approved. I'm doing the mid-year book freakout tag. I think if I were only make 2 videos per year, one would be the end of the year favorites, which are like the best videos of the year, and the other video I would make would be the mid-year book freakout tag, because I think I've done it every year I've been on YouTube. I just think it's a ton of fun. I don't know. I have actually, as like a viewer of BookTube, been a little bit detached from the community. I haven't been watching that much BookTube, to be very honest, in the last few months. But, you know, recently my feed has been filled with all of these types of videos, and it's kind of gotten me excited again to make videos again. So I'm going to jump into the questions. I do adapt them just a little bit to better suit the kind of reading that I've had across the last 6 months. But yeah, I hope you enjoy. I'll jump right in. Okay, the first question, or the most exciting question, is what is the best book that you've read this year? And I'm going to split it into my favorite nonfiction and my favorite fiction book. So my favorite nonfiction book was The Last Slave Ship, The True Story of How Clotilda Was Found, Her Descendants and an Extraordinary Reckoning by Ben Raines, which is a, I think, really well done piece of, historical nonfiction about the Clotilda, which is the last slave ship that brought African slaves over to America. And the author in, I think, 2018 or 2019 actually found the remains of the Clotilda in the kind of Mobile River around Alabama. So on the surface, this is a story about like the ship and the wreck of the ship and finding the ship. But I would say more broadly, this is the story of the legacy of American slavery through the story of the Clotilda and her survivors. And so the author covers things like the Benin slave trade. He covers conflicts between African-born slaves and American-born slaves, which is something that I never knew about. He covers kind of the development of Africatown, which is where many of the survivors of the Clotilda lived, and kind of the environmental issues that have occurred over the years to Africatown. And then he also covers the descendants of not only Clotilda survivors, but also Benin slave traders. He covers the descendants of the American slave traders, and he talks a lot about the idea of, you know, reconciliation and forgiveness and all of these kinds of things. And so I thought it was just a really well contained story. It was emotional, it was well researched, it was thoughtful. It was also short, so if you're looking for a short audiobook read, I do recommend it. I just thought it was really good, so I definitely recommend this one if you're looking for a nonfiction read. For my favorite fiction read, it is Draco Malfoy and the Mortifying Ordeal of Being in Love by Brigitte Knightley, which is a fanfic. This is a fanfic where Hermione and Draco Malfoy get together. It's set, 10 or 15 years after the end of Harry Potter number 7. And it was incredible. This is only my 3rd or 4th fanfic that I've ever read. They've all been Harry Potter fanfics. And I am just as surprised as anybody that this one hit so hard for me. I just found it extremely cute, extremely satisfying, and very nostalgic. Because unlike some of the other kind of Harry Potter fanfics I've read, I felt like the characters in this one felt like real extensions of, you know, the J.K. Rowling Harry Potter characters. And I think in other fanfics I read, I didn't feel like the actions and the plot kind of made sense based on how I understood those characters to be. Anyway, it was really cute. It's a romance. It's a lot of fun. I don't know. I just really, really enjoyed it. I'm, again, as surprised as anybody else that this was such a hit for me, but I can't deny that I just had such a good time with this book. I do always like adding in a question that is my favorite Read the World book, because I'm still working on this project. I'm like halfway right now, so I'm going to still be working on this project for quite a while. But my favorite Read the World book was Monique and the Mago Reigns, 2 Years with a Midwife in Mali by Kris Holloway, which is a memoir of the author's time in Mali as a early 20-something-year-old, her time in Mali as a Peace Corps volunteer. She's American. The author is American. And I was a little bit nervous because we have read other kind of Peace Corps or volunteer memoirs before for Read the World, and I didn't feel like they were maybe as good of a pick, but I thought this one was really great. The author is humble and open and vulnerable, and she covers all of her time specifically working with a woman named Monique, who is a midwife in a village in Mali. And so we learn a lot about Monique. I felt like her friendship with Monique was real, felt really real and authentic as well. And I just learned a lot. I learned a lot about women's and children's health, specifically in Mali. I learned a lot about kind of customs and village life. I don't know. I just thought it was a really good book, and it kind of surprised me how good it was, but I was really pleased with that one. Although I did not read a lot of Read the World books in the first half of the year, so I do need to catch up on quite a bit of them in the second half. Okay, what is the best series that you've read this year? But I kind of changed this question because I think it originally asked for a sequel, but I ask, what is the best series? I think that is the Prefect Dreyfus Emergency series by Alastair Reynolds, which I think is a really bad name for a series, but whatever. And the first book in that series is called Aurora Rising. Now this series takes place in the same universe as the author's Revelation Space series. And I do kind of think you need to have read Revelation Space before you read, this other series, because it just has some of like the historical events and the politics and even some of the characters that I think if you don't have that background, you might not appreciate Aurora Rising and the rest of the books as much. It is a police procedural series, so a bit of a detective series, and I think Alastair Reynolds writes a lot of like hard or harder sci-fi, but I felt like this series was a little bit lighter in that aspect. It takes place in the setting that's called the Glitter Band, and that is a collection of 10,000 habitats all linked together, and they're all, circling a specific planet. And so each of these habitats consists of all these people that choose to live in a certain way, whether they use technology in a different way, they have, different politics, different ways of organizing themselves, different ways they view themselves. And so I think my favorite thing about Alastair Reynolds is his big ideas and his world building. And I think the idea of having these habitats all linked to each other allows him to really lean into that world building. Anyway, I just found a lot of fun. He kept me on my toes. I didn't know what was happening, what was going to happen, and that all made me, really enjoy this first book. It starts off with the destruction of a single habitat, and then it kind of unfolds from there. It gets a lot more political, but yeah, I thought it was a ton of fun, so I definitely recommend this series if you're interested, and if you've already read the Revelation Space series as well. A new release I want to read but I haven't gotten to yet, that would be Shifting Sands, A Human History of the Sahara by Judith Scheele. The Sahara is a huge area. It spreads most of North Africa. And I don't know. I'm just excited to get to this one. It covers all the way from like prehistory up through modern day. And yeah, I will actually get to it very soon because it is the July pick for my dad and I, our book club. So yes, this will be one that I get to soon. And then, what is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year? I think that is probably Strength of the Few by James Islington, which is the follow-up in the Hierarchy series to The Will of the Many. That book came out, I think, 2 years ago. I really liked it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I think I kind of do need to reread it though, or at least get a good synopsis before I pick up this sequel. But I am really excited for that sequel to get released later this year. For my biggest disappointment, it's not the worst book I read by any means. That was a different book. But I was really disappointed that I didn't love My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante more than I did. I had pushed off reading this book because I just thought that it was going to be so good and it was so hyped, and all these people that I really trust really loved this book. And I found it good, but not like life-changing by any means. I think the characterization in this book is by far my favorite part. I feel like the female voice is very strong for the main character, but I just couldn't get into the kind of neighborhood goings and drama that occur. And even the main friendship that is explored in this one, I don't know, I just couldn't get that invested in it. So I'm probably not going to continue with this series. I do kind of want to check out the show. So if you watched the show, let me know if you liked it. But I was pretty bummed that this one wasn't like a, life-changing 5-star read for me. But again, it's not bad by any means. It just wasn't as good as I wanted it to be. Okay, for my biggest surprise, I have The Wind Weaver by Julie Johnson. Now, I read a lot of romantasy in between, I don't know, more serious reads, nonfiction, Read the World, all the serious reads that I have. I really like reading romantasy books to kind of, I don't know, palate cleanse in some way. And I loved The Wind Weaver. I thought it was so good. And let me tell you, there's nothing unique about this story. It is a fae romance. You have a woman with a mysterious background. She has special powers. She is surprisingly amazing at the bow and arrow. She has a type of magic that's it's not even like that creative of a magic system, if I'm being very honest. It's like elemental magic, like fire, water, wind. And there's kind of an enemies to lovers subplot in it. There's nothing unique about this book, but I totally ate it up. And I don't know if it's just like it hit right at the right moment, or if there's something about it. I just thought the romantic tension at the beginning was really good. I finished it in a single sitting. And I remember just kind of giggling to myself as I read it. I just had such a good time reading it. I wish that there was like way more content for me to consume. And I'll be really excited to read the next book in the series. But I was, again, very surprised how much I loved The Wind Weaver this year. My favorite author of the year is definitely Alastair Reynolds so far, because I've read 4 or 5 of his books this year. Some standalones, a novella, some of his series. I already mentioned the series Question, one of his books. And again, I just really love his world building and his big ideas. I just think it's super creative. I'm always kind of blown away when I pick these books up. The one thing I will say is that I feel like he kind of sends it in for the endings. Sometimes in the endings, it's, you know, you get all this build up and then it kind of whispers away towards the end. So I do wish his endings hit a little bit harder for me, but obviously it hasn't stopped me from coming back and seeing more of his ideas. He's got quite a big backlist, so there's a lot of stuff set again in that Revelation space world, the same as the Prefect Dreyfus Emergency series. So there's other series set in this world or other standalones set in this world, and then he also has, I think, just, you know, separate series as well. But yeah, I think if you're just starting out with Alastair Reynolds, the first book I read from him actually is the one that I'd recommend. It's House of Suns by Alastair Reynolds. If you want to get a sense of his kind of big ideas, big time periods, big spans that he thinks about, if you want to get a sense of that, I think I'd probably start with House of Suns. But I just thought it was, you know, it's a ton of fun. And so he's still producing new books, and so that's really exciting, and I hope to get to more of his backlist in later 2025. My newest favorite character is actually one that snuck in just this week, because I just finished The Devils by Joe Abercrombie, which is my first book by Joe Abercrombie, and I really enjoyed it. It wasn't like super amazing 5-star love it, but I had a really good time with it, and I do want to read more by Joe Abercrombie. This is a grimdark fantasy series. Someone on Reddit compared it to like a dark Suicide Squad, and now that they say it, I can see it as well. And you kind of follow this cast of characters. They're all devils in some way, that kind of have this kind of, you know, quest aspect to the plot line. And one of these characters in this group is a magician called Balthazar, and I just really liked him. He provided a lot of comic relief. He was just really humorous in his attitude. He's very pompous and kind of full of himself. And it was just really fun to see him change over the course of the book, and, you know, all of his kind of comedic kind of episodes that he gets. But I think just in general, The Devils had a lot of really memorable characters. I think, you know, when you have a book like this where you kind of switch POVs each chapter, some POVs can be a lot more interesting than others. But I found all of the characters in this group, I think, I don't know, 6, maybe 5 or 6 characters in this group. I found all of them really interesting, and I liked them all. I did like Balthazar the most, but they were all really, really memorable. So yeah, if you haven't picked this up, I do think it's a lot of fun, but I don't have anything to compare it against for Abercrombie's kind of previous backlist. I haven't read anything else from him. But yeah, Balthazar, Definitely my favorite character, although I will say that Demon Copperhead from Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver was a very close runner-up for this question. There was no book that made me cry this year, but there was a book that made me really happy, and that was The Penguin Lessons by Tom Michel. And I was really surprised by this one as well, so it probably could have won as a most surprising pick as well. But it is a memoir by the author about his time as a young adult in Argentina, where he rescues a Magellanic penguin from a Uruguayan oil spill, and he takes him back to his Argentinian boys school where he's kind of teaching for a year or two. And I don't know, he names this penguin Juan Salvador, and so we cover, you know, his time and what he learned from Juan Salvador, and also the interactions that Juan Salvador has with others, with the boys at the school. I don't know, I didn't think that this would hit as well as it did, but it was genuinely laugh out loud funny at certain times. It was narrated really well, so I highly recommend an audiobook if you do pick it up. And yeah, it just made my heart feel warm, which is, again, I wasn't expecting from like a human animal companionship book. I don't know, I just really loved it. So yeah, this is very easily the book that made me feel, you know, warm and fuzzy as soon as I picked it up. The most beautiful book cover of the year for me is not one that I bought. It's actually one that hasn't come out yet, but it is the cover for Dominion by Addie E. Kitchens. And it's a very simple cover, but I don't know, I like the imagery on it. This is a story, it's a literary fiction piece, I think set in the South, and it covers, I think, a Baptist minister and his son and their relationship. And yeah, I don't know, I like the imagery with the snake, with the church. I don't know, this one for some reason has really gravitated towards me. And then for what books I still need to read before the end of the year, I say this every year, hopefully not next year, but it is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And I feel ashamed to admit that I have not read it. I think this is another one of the books where I keep putting it off, because if I don't absolutely love it, I'm gonna be really disappointed. And so I don't know, I just keep putting it off. But maybe this year will be the year that I finally do get to it. And then the last question is, what content creators have I been loving? So I always love anything by Tiffany from Towering TBR. I've also done a lot of buddy reads with Tiffany across the last probably 2 years. Every, I don't know, 2 months, every 3 months we do a buddy read. And so I always love seeing whatever she's reading and her thoughts and everything. And then Hannah from Savage Reads is another person who I always really like seeing her videos. I like how like straightforward her videos are. She just does a wrap up like each week on the books that she's read, and it's a mixture of different genres and different topics, and I don't know, I just like hearing what she has to say about those books, and she's got a very eclectic taste. So if you like my taste, I think you'll probably like the tastes for both of those creators. That was the mid-year book freakout tag. A little bit of an odd mashup of books and more fiction than normal. I think upon answering these questions, I've realized that the vast majority are fiction, not nonfiction. I'd say overall my reading year has been okay, which I also kind of feel is what I say every year, but I'm hoping, and I think usually this also does happen, I usually have more hits in the later half of the year than in the first half of the year. But yeah, you can let me know what your favorite book of the year has been so far, and I will see you sometime in the future. I don't know when or what for, but yeah, take care, and I'll see you then. Bye.